Singing Dutchman Productions. Hello and welcome to Doug's Front Porch, a podcast where I get to sit down with friends old and new and have honest conversations. Today I welcome Katelyn Walbridge to the Front Porch, a former student, and it's been way too long since we've been able to catch up, so I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast. Welcome, Katelyn.
Thank you.
So, I always start off every episode kind of the same way. Katelyn, tell everybody a little bit about, where you grew up. Maybe, did you have brothers or sisters? A little bit about your childhood, things you were involved in, and then we'll take the conversation from there.
Yep. So, grew up Central PA on a small farm. I have two younger sisters, very close in age. Went to Central Mountain High School, was involved with track and cross country a lot of times. Did 4-H, rode horses, so did a lot of stuff with the farm. Had a lot of hobbies really growing up. And yeah.
Sounds good. I knew you were involved with horses. I remember that from when you were in high school.
Yeah.
Were either of your parents in the military?
No, they were not.
And
my grandfather was in the military.
All right. Well, audience will find out why I asked that question at first, going here a little bit further on down the conversation. So after high school, so you took German in high school, so that's how I got to know you. I had you all 4 years. And the one thing I remember the most about you, Katelyn, is that the arc of freshman Katelyn to senior Katelyn, when you first came in as a freshman, you were one of, in my 20-year career, you might be the quietest kid I had. You did not say a peep. And then I'd see you in the hallway talking to friends, and I'd be like, she talks. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But by the time you were a senior, you had grown, and matured, and you were really active, like you said, in various sports on campus, and you excelled at those too. And I'm glad you kind of did grow up and evolve and become
very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is really crazy when I think about where you are now, and we'll get to that too here in a little bit. But I always have this image of 14-year-old Katelyn that was just sat in my room, did everything I always asked her to do, did really well on everything, straight A's, but did not say a word. So those are my memories anyway of being in high school.
No, that's pretty right.
So after high school, you made the decision to apply to the Air Force Academy, the United States Air Force Academy. Yep. Talk to me about that process. What made you? So you mentioned your grandfather was in the military. Was
Yes.
that one of the reasons? Why did you choose the Air Force? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably the primary reason. Honestly, I grew up listening to a lot of his stories. He was a fighter pilot in the Vietnam War, and really just listening to everything that he went through, all the fun and games, kind of his companions going through the Air Force. It sounded awesome, and I thought it would really fit my personality. It's kind of always what I really wanted to do, and I ended up applying to the Air Force Academy. Knew that I wanted to go into the Air Force, did not apply anywhere else, which was not a very smart decision at the time. And yeah, I luckily got accepted there.
Well, can I ask you one question? Because I don't have a military background myself. So why did you choose to go to the academy instead of just enlisting in the Air Force?
I wanted to be an officer because that's pretty much how you get to fly. And I thought I wanted to do the same thing as my grandfather. So that's why I chose the academy. I didn't want to go ROTC. I thought prestigious, free, go to the academy, can get in. And that's really what made my mind up.
So I have two questions. One, when you were a kid, did you ever have any experience flying other than being a passenger in a plane?
Yeah, my dad owns an airplane in Lock Haven, actually. So he would regularly take me up, do aerobatics up in the sky. I always loved it, and he said I always had a knack for it. So yeah.
How young were you the first time you actually had your hands on the yoke of the plane, or a plane, and you were flying it?
Holy cow. I mean, there's a picture of me as a 3-year-old sitting on my dad's lap in the plane, and then I was flying it with him, by myself with him, before I was driving a car. Like, I felt more comfortable in the airplane than I did in a car at that point.
It's crazy that you tell me that story, because thinking back to you in high school, so that's the era that I had you as a student, and I don't ever remember. I didn't know that about you. I didn't know that you were flying planes before you were driving a car.
Yeah.
So what was it? Were you ever scared?
No, I don't think I was ever scared, no.
It was just something that you grew up with it, right? So it was just,
Yeah.
that's crazy. That is so crazy to me. Okay, all right. So, yeah. So let's talk about the Air Force Academy. To people that don't know about how the academies work, of course, most people are familiar with West Point and the Naval Academy, but I think the Air Force Academy is one that a lot of people maybe A, don't know that it exists, or B, doesn't realize,
Yes.
or doesn't know anything about it. So when somebody wants to go to an academy, whether it's the Army, the Naval Academy, or the Air Force Academy, what's that process like for a high school student? What do you have to do?
Oh my gosh. It's a big process. You have to know early on that you want to go and apply, because it'll take almost a full entire year to submit a whole package that you need. So you have to take a physical exam at some point, get a certain score. You have to submit, obviously, all your transcripts. You have to get a recommendation from multiple people. You have to meet with a congressman. I think that's one of the hardest things to get, is a nomination of some sort. So
Well,
I think the president, vice president.
can we talk about that?
Yeah.
What's it like? Because I know that I've had other students who have gone on to the other academies, and I've written a letter of recommendation, but I always know that
Yep.
I'd heard that they needed to get this, something from a representative or a senator. What is that like? Does that mean
Yes.
you personally have to, reach out to these, either U.S. rep or your U.S. senator, and say, hey, my name's Katelyn, I want to go to the academy. Please consider me. Is that what it's like?
Yeah, it's pretty much like that. I got mine from Glenn Thompson. So I think I just went into their office. I think I was by myself too. And I submitted like the little packet that they told me that I had to bring in. And then I later had to go back for an interview, of which I interviewed with 3 other people, and they all ended up graduating in my class. So then they made a recommendation, and I got one of the nominations that they gave out.
That's crazy.
Yep.
So then you graduate high school, you're already accepted to the Air Force Academy, you pack your bags and you move to Colorado. What was that like?
Right into basic.
What was that
Oh
what was
my
that
gosh.
transition like?
It's oh my gosh. It's hard to explain if you don't experience it, but you're thrown right into it. So any academy, you go through basic training. I'm not sure if everyone in ROTC does that, but so right off the bat, I get there 2 days ahead, because obviously Colorado, the high elevation, you got to get a little bit acclimated before you start basic. And then my parents dropped me off. I was kind of thrown into it. I did some paperwork, and then I was standing on what they call the footprints once you get off the bus. And there are people screaming in my face. I had to carry my bag in my left hand. I had to run on the strips in single file with everyone. I didn't know anyone there. It was overwhelming. I'd never had anyone yell in my face before. It was a huge, brand new experience, and it was very intimidating for me.
And then you have to go to classes too, on top of all of this, and then you become
Yep.
a student
Yeah.
at the same time. How difficult was, I mean, you talked about the initial shock and that initial transition, but over the course of the 4 years that you were at the academy, how tough was it?
It was pretty tough. I didn't have great ACT or SAT scores. Honestly, they really looked at the whole person. I think that's really what got me in there. And I struggled with the school in the very beginning part, for sure. Right after basic, you're thrown into classes. You have a few days to transition as a freshman, and the upperclassmen are helping you out, because they're the ones that just trained you in basic. It's all done by the cadets, which is awesome. And then you're thrown into your classes. You have all these core classes. I was thrown into calculus, which I'd never taken in high school. Didn't have to. So why would I, So I had never really studied before, and I started getting like 30%, 40% on tests. And then I realized, okay, something has to change. Like, I have to actually make an effort right here. So what's great about the academy is the class sizes are really small, and the teachers, they're mostly officers. They want to help you succeed. So I would go into EI, extra instruction, which everyone allowed, and I would be one-on-one with a teacher in my own time after class because I needed the extra help. And that's what really got my grades up the first semester. I think I brought, in chemistry was my hardest one that year, an F to a B. So like just making that effort, yeah, it was crazy. And then the rest of the year, I think I graduated with above a 3.4. So I really turned it around at that point.
So that freshman year was a real eye opener, but also a challenge too, huh?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it was. The core classes were very challenging.
Were there times where you really were thinking about, my God, what did I do? I made a huge mistake.
um, I don't think I ever really thought that.
Were you so driven that you knew that I have to do whatever it takes, and this is I'm gonna go through
Oh
hell,
yeah.
but this is what I want to do, and I know
Yeah.
that I have to do this. Okay.
Yep, I don't like failing at anything. I knew that I wasn't going to, and I just set my mind like I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go get the help that I need, which a lot of people need that. Um, and then later in the academy, I excelled in a lot of things. So really, if you set your mind to it and get the extra help that you needed, you could get through the academy.
So here's another question I have. So you're at the Air Force Academy and you know you want to be a pilot. What is that system like? You tell your advisor, "Look, I want to be a pilot. What do I have to do to be a pilot?" Or is there some kind of like, could the Air Force say, "Well, Katelyn, everybody wants to be a pilot and we don't think you have what it takes." Like, what's that like? What's that system like?
So your senior year, or let me say junior year, at the end of the year, you put in your job preferences. And then after graduation, you're going to know your job before you even get there. So I put in my preference, hey, I always want to be a pilot. And there were extra things that you could do at the academy. So you had to take, I don't even remember what it's called, a special test. Even if you're interested in being a pilot, you would take it. And then you would take powered flight. So the academy had a lot of extracurricular summer programs and things during the school year. So powered flight was just one of those programs. So we had about 10 flights on the airfield on base where we would just fly with officers, and that was their job. And they would teach us a little bit about flying. And it was really trying to incentivize people to become pilots because there's been a pilot shortage last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, I'd say. So that's kind of with my year. If you wanted to be a pilot and you applied, you were most likely going to get it. And then senior year around October, November timeframe, that's when you would kind of get your job drop is what we call it. And I think we submitted 5 top choices of what we wanted. And if you wanted to go rated, which was pilot or RPAs, that was kind of one side of it. And the non-rated, that would be like your maintenance officers, your intel officers, your logistics officers. So a lot of people want that. And they'll have the standard 5-year commitment versus I'll have more of a 10 to 15-year commitment going the rated route. So once you put that in, then you'll get your job. And if they have the slots, you're high enough in the class, you'll probably get what you want. For my year, I think it's the only year it ever happened. Every person that wanted pilot got it. I think that's the only year that's ever happened. And then a lot of my classmates, yeah, go for it.
I have a kind of a question too. So I'm thinking like there are different kinds of pilots in the Air Force, right? There's people that are flying these
Yep.
giant like transport planes, and then there are fighter pilots. So they're flying these multi-million-dollar fighter jets. How does that get divvied up? Is it all based on your abilities or test scores, or how's that work?
Well, after you graduate and you got a pilot slot, then you go to pilot training, and that's pretty much where you find out all that. So really graduating from the academy, it doesn't matter where you graduated, anything like that. You're an academy graduate, cool, like that is all that matters anymore. And going through pilot training, everyone goes through the same initial program of flying the T6. And from there, based on how well you did and what you want, and I guess a little bit how like the kind of person you are, and if your leadership thinks that you should go to this, you go one of 2 tracks: the T1 for all the heavy aircraft like the cargo planes, and then the T38 for your fighter bomber tracks.
And you knew that you wanted to be a fighter pilot?
Oh yeah, that's that's the track that I knew I wanted. And I did well in the T6 and they had enough slots. Like sometimes they just don't have enough. They don't, and they can't put you into that program. But I fortunately was able to. And then I went to the T38 for 6 months and trained in that.
So what are the physical requirements of to be a pilot like that?
There aren't really any different physical requirements besides the normal physical standards that the Air Force has, like when you take your yearly test. Obviously, if you don't do well in that or if you fail it at all, you're not going to be a pilot and you probably shouldn't be an Air Force officer to begin with. But then for the fighters, specifically flying the 38, I had to go to the centrifuge. So I was put under high Gs for different amounts of seconds to practice like my AGSM, like my breathing techniques. And I think the highest I went was 7.5 Gs for that. So we had to learn the breathing techniques being under G. And I know a lot of the other fighter aircraft take you up to 9G, like F-16 does that. So
how scary was that?
I have a video and it is disgusting. Like, my whole face was drooping. I didn't do too bad. Most women actually don't do too bad. It's a lot of the taller, lankier guys that have trouble with the breathing. But yeah, no one was looking forward to it. I had like blood vessels like popped all over my body. Yeah, it wasn't very fun.
Okay, you brought up something I've been waiting to talk about. So you are a young woman that's a fighter pilot. What let's talk about that. How long, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head or not, but how long have women been allowed, how long has it been able for women to be pilots in the Air Force?
Pilots itself, I think for a pretty long time. I'm not sure of the year exactly. From my experience, what I can tell you, I had a sim instructor. So we go through sims as well as the flying, and they're past pilots. So I had a woman and a man that were married that came from the academy. They were on the jump team together, married, went to pilot training. And I'm not sure how old she was, probably in her 60s. But when she was young, she flew the 38 as well. Like, this is a very old jet, like I think built in 59 or came onto the line in 59. And she could not get a fighter afterwards, but she could fly the trainer T-38. So at least from her time, it was interesting talking to her about her experience, because her husband went to fly a plane that she wanted to fly as well. And here she was, she couldn't even do that. So she flew the trainer for a few years and then had to get a different heavy aircraft instead of a fighter.
Did you ever experience any pushback being a woman?
No, I've never had a bad experience at the academy or really in pilot training or Air Force yet. I'd say the worst, which also could be my personality as well, would be during training. The older men, like the majors, the captains that have families and stuff, my instructors were more hesitant and serious with me and didn't joke around as much as with the men in my class. I was the only woman in my class of 15 guys in the 38 track, and which isn't a big deal. Like, it was great. Like, they're great guys. But it seemed to me like a lot of the instructors, it was easier for them to talk to the guys and get to know them. And versus me, I felt a little outside that the whole time.
So at this point now, you've achieved your dream, and not everybody in life gets to do that. Here you are. Eventually, you pass all. You go through this long process of going to the academy, and then graduating, and then going through this next school. But I do have to ask you before I have to pop this in, because I'm sure people out there wondering: is pilot school anything like Top Gun, the movie Top Gun?
um Wow. I would say they're realistically, we're a lot nerdier. Unfortunately, there's a lot of guys like that. It is a lot of work and a lot of studying that you have to put in to be good. But I would say a lot of that movie was realistic. A lot of it was also not necessarily realistic, but the culture and everything that it portrayed is pretty close to what you kind of experience in a fighter bomber environment, which is what I've kind of put myself into, which I enjoy. It's been great.
So by that you mean you and the other pilots are very competitive with each other in the sense that you want to be the best and you want to show the rest of these guys that you are the best. I mean, is that what you mean in that sense?
That wasn't exactly what I meant, but that's also, there are a lot of guys out there that want to be the best, but uh, more so what I meant was like the companionship and in your squadron, your friends, and you're going out to bars. Like that is so realistic. You have a squad bar, everyone hangs out after work in their flight suits. You're all joking around. Yeah,
And
very realistic in that
and
sense.
and then the occasional beach volleyball, right?
Yeah. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. Oh, okay. 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 So now back to the train I was going down here. So you have reached and achieved a dream that you've had since you were a little girl. Think, you're this little girl in a plane in over the skies of Lock Haven, Pennsylvania, flying around with your dad on his lap, and now you are a fighter pilot in the United States Air Force. The very first time that you donned your uniform, your flight suit, and it was just you solo in that jet. You'd passed all of your classes, you've done everything you need to do, and
Hmm.
you're going on. What was going through your head?
Oh my gosh, it was like a whirl. It was amazing to know that this how many thousand to $1 million plane, like I'm controlling it. I have my life in my hands. There are crashes every year with this jet. Like it's the most dangerous jet in the Air Force by far, the T-38. It's the hardest plane to land in the Air Force, as told by many instructors. It's dangerous plane, and to be able to pilot it and get through the program, it's an achievement that you should be proud of, and it feels really good. And being up in the sky, flying that, putting on the G's, doing aero loops in the sky, it's pretty amazing just to relax by yourself up there.
Did you ever have that moment where you were like saying to yourself, I can't believe this is happening?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, the first ride in the 38 when you feel the afterburners, oh my gosh, it's amazing. Like you're kind of sit back in your seat, you feel like the thrust of the jet beneath you. It's a pretty amazing experience that I'm fortunate to have. So,
Yeah, you mentioned something else I was thinking about. These planes are so expensive, millions and millions and millions of dollars. How does the Air Force kind of like, what do they tell you about that? They're like, okay, Katelyn, you got a $45 million jet in your hands here. Now be careful. I mean, is it something like that? I mean, or is that too much to think about? And they're like, just do what you need to do and don't worry about what the plane costs.
yeah, no, we don't care about the cost. It doesn't affect me directly. I'm an officer. I don't care. The instructors don't care. You just be safe. If you have to eject and that you crash the plane, no one cares as long as you are safe and you get out. And that's what everyone cares about. And I think that's great that the Air Force never really puts a number or cares, at least to us, to our faces, doesn't care about like the cost of that. Obviously, it's probably going to be in news articles and stuff, but never directly said anything to us. I think it's great.
So other than this T-38, can you tell us any other jets that you've been able to fly?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
So after the T6, which everyone flies, and a lot of that is changing now. There's a new jet coming out for the trainers, and the T-38 is probably going to go away in the next few years. But honestly, it feels really good that I was part of the class that was able to fly it because it has been around for how many years? I mean, we have maintenance issues every day. Like the jets are old, they break, like they're bent, like half of them don't work the same, you know? And then after I graduated pilot training, I actually, what we call it, drop night. You have a big celebration. It's horrible. I hate the idea of this, but it's kind of great in itself. It's an interesting tradition. On drop night, everyone is usually invited from base. It's a big deal. And you have the instructors that made a PowerPoint. They have music playing. And at Columbus, Mississippi, where I went to pilot training, the room was all dark. And you have everyone there, like the underclassmen, civilians, the sim instructors. And they're all there. And your graduating class is half drunk. We have our beer mugs with our wings on them. Yeah. And you get called up and you're roasted by like your instructors that are up there. Absolutely, like roasted. It's horrible, but it's hilarious. It's so funny. And then while you're sitting on stage with all of these people watching, they play a video of your plane that you get. That like this is your life. Like the rest, like at least for your Air Force career, this is the jet you're going to fly, and it's a life changer. You may get what you want, you may not get what you want, and it's in front of all these people, and then you have to walk off stage, and then you have to shake the wing commander's hand and salute him, and then walk away and hopefully be happy. But after that, I actually got to go to instructor training for the 38. So I was one of the ones that got to do that. So now I'm a qualified instructor in the 38, and I'll be flying the older version. So it has all the old steam gauges and no GPS.
Wow. So, unbelievable. So let me ask this question. In the time that you've been in the Air Force now, and it's quite a number of years already, how has the Air Force itself changed? What have you seen change, for good or for bad?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a hard question. I'd say at the academy, you don't really notice a lot because you're so focused on the life there. And that was 4 years. And then I guess the 3 years that I've been out, I've also been very much in the training mode. But any changes that have come about, it's mostly been from what I think is the lower levels, is what I've seen. I can't really say a lot of big changes. I mean, we also went through all the COVID restrictions and everything. So like that was something new that we had to go through when we were doing training. But besides that, I don't think there are really huge changes that I've personally noticed or been affected by.
Okay. I was just curious. So where are you going from here? What's next? How many more years do you see yourself staying in?
Well, after you get your wings and you graduate, you have to have 10 if you're a pilot. So at least 9.5 more years for me. So, and I don't know what I want to do after that. I could stay in longer if I wanted to keep flying, or I could go to the airlines, which is where a lot of pilots go because the money is really good and they love Air Force pilots. So that's a huge place that people love to go after this. But I guess it really depends on my time in and how I like flying my current aircraft. So I'll be flying the 38A model, like the old version of the one I flew in pilot training as an instructor for the next year and a half. And then after that, I will be going to fly an aircraft. I don't necessarily want to say which one it is, but I'll be going through that, become an instructor, and then there's a new aircraft that I could potentially go to. It's being upgraded. So the chances are there for that. So there's a lot of opportunities in the Air Force, really, whichever career field you go to. And moving from one plane to the next isn't as difficult as a lot of people think. So I could go on to fly something else if I wanted to, like, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Yeah. What was I going to ask now? Shoot, I forgot. I don't know. I had a follow-up question, then I forgot what it was. So I got to ask this question. Now that you've done all this, what the first time you saw is your grandfather still alive?
Yes.
So the first time he saw you with your wings, what was that like?
He's very, very proud. I think it's something that he wanted for his sons to do and they didn't. And he's very proud that I did that. And the academy wasn't open when he went through, and he thinks it's amazing and super cool that I did that. So I understand when he tells me stories. I understand a lot of the verbiage now that he uses. And I think that's a lot of extra bonding that we can do. And talking about the flying, I mean, it's the same thing. I'm flying the same sort of flights that he flew. Like, it's very similar. And he gave me his set of wings. So I'm using his set of wings from when he graduated how many years ago. And I fly with a little jade with that every flight.
That's sweet. That's really sweet. Oh man, I tug at the heartstrings on that one. All right,
Yeah.
Kate. All right, Caitlin. Let's imagine that there is a 10-year-old girl out there listening to this podcast and says, I wanna do that too." What do you tell that girl?
I would say if that's what you want to do, then make it happen because you can. You can, if you want something bad enough, the opportunity is out there for you. You can talk to people, get to know people, make an effort, do well in school, even if you're not as smart as a lot of people around you, and you can really make it happen for yourself. I had a lot of opportunities at the academy, and I just kind of made them happen. That's really the best I can kind of explain that. But yeah, go for it. I mean, every career in the Air Force is actually open to women now too. So, I mean, I dreamed big. Everyone else can too. Like, definitely go for it.
I agree with all that, but I think you're missing on one thing that you do so well, and that's the sense that you worked hard. You could
Yeah.
say to someone, "Yeah, just
Yeah.
just go do it. You can do it." But there's
Yes.
there's the action part of all that. It's easy to say it, but and that's the one thing. That's one of the things. Now, I can't. There's a lot of things that have always impressed me about you, Caitlin. But one thing for sure, whether it was in my classroom, whether it was on the cross country circuit, and then going to the academy and getting into the academy and everything you've done since then, stuff didn't just fall into your lap. You worked your ass off. You worked your ass off to get to where you are today. And I think that has to be stressed. And it also has to be celebrated too.
Hmm. Yeah. If you have the motivation and willpower, like you can get there with work. I truly believe that.
All right, last question about your job. What's your favorite thing when you're up in the air?
Favorite thing.
Is it just the fact that it's just you in this plane? Is it that the sky? Is it the stillness? The quietness? What is it? What's your favorite thing up in the air?
Um, it's a few different things. I really, now that I'm out of training, kind of that whole aspect, that kind of taints it for sure. And now I can really just go up and enjoy it. I love cloud surfing.
Explain what that is.
Yeah. um, on beautiful days when there are nice big poofy clouds in our areas where we can fly, and there are holes in the clouds, we can cloud surf and do flips over them and, kind of like the Top Gun movements that you saw, just do that around clouds. And it's really, really fun and awesome. And I also love formation. So being up there with another jet, you two are both up there flying close together, separated, like just having someone else be up there with you and kind of going through the different maneuvers that you have together. I think formation is a lot of fun and really cool. But yeah, in itself, like just being up in the sky and getting to just relax, look around you, be up there with your wingman, it's pretty awesome.
What's the fastest you've ever gone?
Fastest I've ever gone. I'm not sure if I made Mach 1 or not, but I got pretty close. I can't confirm that I went Mach 1 or not, but
I can't imagine. I just cannot imagine what that must be like. I just can't. I'd love to feel it though.
yeah.
Oh, Caitlin, this has been awesome. I close every episode the same way with 10 quick questions. This has nothing to do with the Air Force anymore. This is just for the audience to get to know you a little bit better. So,
Okay.
Are you ready for your questions?
Sure.
All right, here we go. Number 1, what is your morning drink of choice?
Wow. Just a cup of coffee.
All right, okay. How do you take your coffee?
Black half the time, some creamer half the other time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just kind of, quick out the door, get a cup of coffee.
I hear you. Okay, number 2. Who is a go-to musical artist or group for you?
Oh boy. I recently heard the Post Nobles. Probably never heard of them. They're really good though.
Okay, what kind of music do they play?
Weird stuff, but good stuff.
Weird stuff, but good
a little weird, a little interesting, but it's Catchy.
Post Nobles.
Yes.
I'll have to look. I will look them up after we're done here. I'm always looking for new stuff, so I'll check them out.
Yeah.
All right, number 3. What is a movie that you can watch over and over again and it never gets old?
Count 'em on, Cristo.
Okay, yeah, that's a good film.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
It's an old one, but it's great.
Okay, all right. Number 4. What's the last thing that you read?
I'm reading Outlander right now.
Okay. Does your job require you to still, even though you've done, you've passed all your classes and all that stuff, is there still a study aspect to what, and a reading aspect to your job?
Yep, every day.
Every day. Okay.
Oh, you have to be on top of everything, especially in the event of emergency. You have to know all the information like that. So yeah, stay on top of it.
Okay. Number 5. What is your favorite pizza topping?
Pepperoni.
Okay.
Simple.
Simple's fine. Simple's fine. Number 6. Laying on the beach or going for a hike?
Hike, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure spending that time in Colorado gave you some great opportunities.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Number 7. This one I'm really interested about. You've invited me over for dinner. What are you making?
Oh boy, I don't cook a lot.
Oh, you don't cook? Okay.
I make a good jalapeno grilled cheese though.
All right, that sounds good.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
Yeah.
And then we'll go out for beers someplace near where you are. How's that sound?
Yeah, perfect.
Sounds good. All right, number 8. What's a dream vacation destination of yours?
South America, like Ecuador, Central America.
Because you've done a lot of traveling. You've seen a lot of the world.
I've been all over the world.
You have. Okay, well then let me ask you this question: out of all the places that you've been, what's one of your favorites?
Iceland, for sure.
I've been to Iceland. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It is. It absolutely is. So are the people too. It's
Yep.
just everything about that country. It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I tell people to go to Iceland. They're always like, I don't want to go.
Yep.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, seriously, you have to go.
You have to.
I
Yeah.
agree. All right. Now, we've talked all this time about the crazy stuff that you do in your life. So this question's kind of fun. What's something you're afraid of?
I don't watch scary movies.
Okay.
I don't like thinking about people coming in and murdering me. I know that's silly, but
I don't like scary movies either.
yeah.
So I got to ask you this question too. I just thought of it. So when you're in that jet and you're flying, are you nervous? Do you get nervous, or are you so comfortable with the machine that it's not a fear aspect?
I don't think it's a fear aspect. I'd say if something went wrong, I would get nervous and hope that I would know the best way to handle it. But I think, honestly, the most fearful part has been getting graded every time you fly.
Okay. All right, last question, number 10. Which
sounds silly as well, but that determines what comes next,
Oh, sure. Okay,
Sorry.
I get you. No, that's fine. I get you. All right, last question, number 10. What job, other than one that you've had in the past, would you love to have?
Probably an archaeologist. I love history.
I could see you doing that.
Yep.
Great. Katelyn, it has been an absolute pleasure to reconnect with you and be able to have this conversation. I've been thinking about, ever since you agreed to do this when I shot you that email, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be so awesome to get to talk to Katelyn again. And I follow you on social media, and you post these pictures of you next to these jets, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
I have to tell you right now, and I don't know if I ever told you this when you graduated high school or not, but I am damn proud of you. Really proud of you. From thinking about where you were when I first met you and where you are today, my gosh, I am just so proud of you. And I follow, your what you've been doing, and every time I've told a lot of people, hey, I have a former student that's a fighter pilot right now. How about that, huh? I swear to you, I've told people that. I'm not joking. I am not joking about that. So I'm so glad that you were able to come on the show and share your story, because I think it's an awesome story, and B, I love the fact that you are a strong, woman pilot that's up there that there's probably people out there that think women can't be pilots in the Air Force. There's some like, oh, only guys are allowed to do it or something like that. So I'm glad that you were able to tell your story and share it with the audience. So, Katelyn, thanks so much. I wish you all the best. Please keep in touch. And I look forward to the day where we can sit down and have a beer together sometime, face to face, instead of being via Zoom.
For sure. Thank you so much. It's been
all
awesome.
right. Take care, Katelyn.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Doug's Front Porch, a conversational podcast with your host, Doug Maidenford. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. 5 stars only, please. Follow along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just look for Doug's Front Porch. Also, please feel free to tell all of your friends about the show, and I'll see you all next time on my Front Porch.